So we're going to go ahead and get started. Since some of you might know me, some of you might not know me. Looks like Naomi, Arlington, Virginia, welcome. I am so glad that you are here, and I am so excited for this. Now, some of you might know me, some of you might not. If you know me, you know that even though I've been training as a speaker for so long now, I still talk fast because I want to be respectful of your time and I want to pack in as much as I can. So as people are joining, please do keep putting in your names and where you're dialing in from. And of course, if you have any questions, drop them in the chat. I will get to them as soon as I can. And it looks like we have a couple more people to welcome. Looks like Lee from Atlanta, Georgia. Welcome. All right, we are going to jump in. Now, this is titled Design Your Blueprint for 2021. Now, a lot of times this year has got off to an interesting start. I don't know if any of you are on my list. We just put out a blog. It feels like it's December 58th or something of 2020. So, and that's just because everything's still happening. So we're gonna hop in today and get grounded, like I said, get focused and on purpose, so we can do our life's work and not just our busy work and go to bed at night feeling like we are on that trajectory and on that path. So let's go ahead, jump in and get started. Now, I want to know, raise of hands, and since I can't see you, I want to see in the chat, is anyone feeling a little crazy busy, spinning, or off purpose? For everyone that I've talked to, January has been a blur. So can you go ahead and just put in a Y or an N? So in other words, yes, it is definitely feeling a little crazy. Or you can raise your hand. So crazy busy. So a lot of times we're feeling this at the top. Senior leaders are feeling this way. When I work with folks one-on-one, the last 3 weeks has been really pretty unimaginable, maybe very productive, but extra insane. And there are some concerns too about their teams being a little bit slowing down and worn out and everything. So if you feel, or you've ever had a day like this woman or a few moments like this woman, go ahead and raise your hand or put in the chat, yes, that's me. And I think it's safe to say that it's been most of us. So all right. So what are you going to learn today, and why are you on yet another Zoom call? And I'm so excited that you're here, but I want to be very transparent so you fully understand what we're going to cover today and the transformation that you can expect. You're going to learn about a proven system to help you feel more clear, more clarity. And this is high level aspirational all the way down to granular, like what do I want my day to look like? How do I plan it out? So we're going to have a conversation about that. Also, how to take some control. January has felt, I've heard the word more than once, spinning, like it's a little bit spinning out of control. We feel a little bit reactive. Has anyone ever felt like you're reacting to other people's wants and needs? Like it just feels a little bit out of control, reacting rather than strategic. And then also we're going to talk about how to help you feel more on purpose. So this isn't the big, large purpose like you're talking about, like what is my purpose on the planet? This is so you can feel more on purpose daily. So you understand that, so you can have the most impact and feel the joy that comes along with doing that. So maybe you've tried some other things, and I don't know, I've never felt like this lady ever. No, I'm just kidding. I know how to course correct, but I think we've all felt a little bit. Has anyone ever felt like her? Okay, go ahead and raise your hand. Anyone? Yeah, we have definitely had those days for sure. But sometimes other approaches, and maybe, yes, Cindette, thank you for your transparency for sure. Other approaches are sometimes when you're on other webinars, it's a little bit, yeah, Margaret, you too. But other webinars, other approaches, they're a little bit random, meaning you get some interesting information, but it's a little bit of a shot in the arm and you're not really sure what to do with it, how it's going to fit into your life, or maybe how it is kind of globally going to solve some of the issues that you're experiencing, right? Kind of random content. A lot of it's really good, but it's random. Okay. Sometimes there lacks a system or progression. In other words, okay, I learned this thing, but then what's next, or what came before it? Or when I'm done, where's the finish line, and how is this, going to help me? And then also, it's not holistic. So a lot of times there's a lot of amazing executive coaches out there, or trainers that talk about you and your business, how to be a leader, and they train on leadership or communication or influence, or something like that. But it's not holistic. In other words, they don't have a pulse on your whole life. And so what we're going to do is going to be a little bit different, and you're going to get a 10,000 foot view. But what I want to be very explicit about is that why, not just my system, but why what we're going to talk about today, it's a little bit different. And it is strategic. It's very strategic. It's not willy-nilly. And I know that there's a more sophisticated name for that, but this isn't going to be a random piece of information. It's going to be part of a system. Okay. Also, it's science-based. Okay. My background's applied sports psychology. I've worked with Olympians. I've worked with senior leaders here in San Francisco, Silicon Valley, worldwide. I lean very heavily, since my work is applied. I lean very heavily on the last 30 to 40 years of human performance research, social psychology, and what have you. That's what this is based on. Okay. Science-based. It's all about process and progression. So there's a process to follow, and there's a progression. So we're going to understand what that is, and then dive in and grab one piece of it. And then, like I said, it's holistic. Well, I don't know. I think Margaret, some of you on have my book, but if you don't, no worries. There is a visual in there just to explain this holistic piece, and that we get laser focused on your career to make sure you have the most impact possible. But also, we need to have a pulse on the other two buckets, where your wellness and relationships. So we're going to talk about how all that works. And then, so this is me. You can read about these things. Some of you know me, some of you don't, but I want to share, just take a minute to explain why I care so deeply about this content, and why your voice and your joy and your impact matters so much to me. Because, when I was 10, I was called into the principal's office of a small private school here in the Bay Area. And her name was Mrs. Harris, but I don't hold any grudges. No, I'm just kidding. But I've not given a dime to that school. But anyways, she called me in, and my parents were in there, and she said, you're working really hard, Sheryl, and you're doing pretty well, but unfortunately, you are not a good enough student to remain in this school. And I looked at my parents and waited for someone to, stick up for me, and no one did. And we took those words as truth, and we left. But my dad did kneel down, and he said, you know what, Sheryl, it's only October. And in June, you have the whole school year. So long story short, I thought that was amazing. And I worked longer and harder, because that's what we do, right? Haven't we done that in our careers? We work longer and harder. But for me, what happened in June, one day, my dad was making breakfast like he normally does on a Sunday, in his blue plaid pajama bottoms and a white V-neck undershirt. And he called me into the kitchen, and he said, "Hey, Sheryl." And I said, "What?" And he said, "You know what? Unfortunately, you won't be going back to that school in the fall." And at that moment, I thought, wow, Mrs. Harris was right. I'm not good enough. And eventually, I wanted to understand who's good enough. And I studied Olympians. I got a master's degree in applied sports psychology. And I worked with the world's top performers for the last 25 years. And you know what? I discovered that my story isn't really about my dad, although he did inspire me. My story is about my mom. And stay with me for a second, because this loops back in why I care about you so much. My mom never had a voice in that room with the principal to tell the principal that she suffered from bipolar disorder, that despite living in an upper middle class family, that my brother, 10 years older, was a drug addict, and that I was getting pretty good grades. And it took a Herculean task just to do that. She didn't have a voice in our home because she wasn't allowed to talk during the news. I don't know if that was a weird 70s thing or what. But, and then she had a passion about endangered owls. And she was always told that she didn't go to college. Who was she to save a species of anything? And when she passed away at 69, within a few months, those 3 species of owls went extinct. So looping back to why I care about you and your voice and your impact and how to get you grounded and in control right now is because your voice matters. I feel like everyone has a purpose placed within them. My mom's was not a big, it wasn't a career, but it was to save these owls, and she passed away, and that's what happened. And so I think now it's a pivotal point in history. It's a pivotal point where women's voices need to be heard. Dreams do not die on my watch. I fight for everyone's voice, not everyone's voice. I should take that back a little bit. Female leaders, emerging leaders, and male allies, those dreams do not die on my watch. That's why I care so deeply. And that's why I am incredibly excited to bring some content to you today. All right, there's your guys are blowing up my chat, so let me look at it real quick for a second. Yeah. Oh yeah, Naomi, no one was allowed to talk in our house during the news 70s and 80s. I know. What is going on? But the crazy thing is that women are getting talked over. You know, we might have a seat at the table. We want to make sure you have a voice at the table. And so let's jump in. Are you guys ready to learn some of these tools? Okay, I have permission. Hands up to rock and roll. All right. Okay, cool. So the first step to get to, that should say get grounded, but focused and on purpose, it's to get clear on your legacy. And you might think, wait, what? That is very high level aspirational, right? And you're right. And the amazing thing about this is that not everyone understands the importance of this, and they certainly don't take the time to do it. So I'm going to be your guide so you can be really the hero of your life, okay? Because that is my goal. I admire everyone who is on this call right now, has had a special invitation to be here. And I want to honor all of the mountains that you've climbed already. And we're going to have a conversation about that. So what is the result of the transformation? Granted, you will not feel like this lady every day, but the goal of this transformation is to feel like her a lot of the time, and to really feel like you're living with more purpose, and to feel like you have some control. You're just not always in reactive mode. And then also you have a greater sense of joy, okay? Now, I want you to think about something for a second before we actually jump into the content. This is called benefit extension. In other words, if you are able to take control, feel grounded, and be on purpose, who besides yourself will it affect? Now, will it affect your partner? So if you are spinning out of control, off purpose, I'm sure it never happens in my household, but sometimes partners take the brunt of it, right? If we're tired, we're experiencing all of these things. I'm being a little bit funny because sometimes it does happen in my household, but at least my level of awareness is good because of what I'm about to teach you, so it doesn't last for long. Also too, what about our kids? A lot of us have older kids. I have 3 adult kids. And so they're not in the house, but they still require our energy. And even if you have kids that are teenagers, they might not require you around a lot. But if we can go from out of control, off purpose, and kind of spinning to feel grounded, purposeful, and that next level of joy, how is it going to impact the interactions that we have with them? And also our colleagues. I mean, I really hope we can get back to the day when we're all hanging out and shoulder to shoulder. But if we're like this, if we don't get control of this, how do we want to be, really remembered by them? What are the connections that we want to have with them? So what we're going to talk about today is really about us, but also about those who matter most to us. Now, and also friends. Now, a lot of times, female leaders and emerging leaders and a few good men that we have on the call, sometimes it's the friends that kind of go by the wayside because we get busy. And so I want you to think that if you are crystal clear on your purpose, if you are on point and then you are very focused on what's important, then what does that mean to your friendships? All right. So I used to say maybe you're not an Olympian or CEO, but we had Olympians and CEOs on these live master classes. So I changed it. So maybe you're an Olympian or a CEO, or, maybe not. But I've cracked the code for a lot of folks. So what I'm trying to tell you is that I've done this before. I have coached hundreds of female executives, female leaders, and like I said, a few good men through this, and delivered it in small groups or in large facilitations for a lot of companies here in San Francisco, Silicon Valley, and worldwide. And I am so excited to get started. All right, so I want you to hold on to your proverbial seats. I showed this picture of a roller coaster because I am not a roller coaster girl. So this is enough to get my heart rate up just looking at the picture. There's a lot to cover in a really short amount of time. So if you are multitasking or doing anything else besides this would be a good time to come back. So without any further ado, we're going to get started. There's one. Yeah, I thought that was a question. And someone said, yes, it's a crazy time. Like, what happened in January? I don't know. Crazy. So, all right. Now, what are we going to talk about? You're wondering like, well, that's a weird shape, but I'm going to show you a whole Venn diagram, and I wanted to break it down so I didn't blast you with too much information. What I talk about and teach, my entire world is really about three things. Okay, one is clarity. It's all about clarity and charting your path, right? So like it says down there, so you're purpose driven. One is about confidence, building your self-talk, your emotional agility, just your mindset. This is the same curriculum on confidence that I would work with Olympians. Can you imagine if yourself and all of the women or anyone in your organization who feels marginalized, if they have the mindset of an Olympian, oh my God, this could be the same stuff. So excited about that. I don't know, you guys might not be as excited as me, but it's pretty exciting. And then also I talk about influence, clarity, confidence, influence. Okay, so we need the clarity to understand high level aspirationally, what is our highest sense of integrity? What is the legacy we want to lead? And then also getting really clear on a granular level, and building the confidence to pull it off, really. And then also the influence, because success does not happen in solitude, right? It does not happen in solitude. So let me just walk you through an example of what I'm talking about. I'm working with a woman. I need to keep everything kind of confidential, but I'll give you this example. I'm working with a woman who is president and general manager of North America sales for a technology company. And she's like crushing it. She's doing amazing. She now we've been to like a year and a half. She now has the respect of the CEO, respect of her peers, and it's a global organization. So I don't want to get into talking about what it's like. Has anyone worked with international teams? There's definitely different cultures and personalities. Has anyone experienced that? Yeah, for sure. So this was kind of a difficult, thank you for putting that in there. So anyways, that's amazing. But in her heart, she knows something was a little off. So for her high level aspirational, it made her discover that she wants to give and have a heart of service more. And then And then to build the confidence, she still has some work to do in her organization. So she wanted to build the confidence to really lock in the work that she had to do. In other words, further gain the allyship of her peers, further gain the respect of her CO. There was some work to do there. There's a next level of it that she needed to build confidence and also build influence. She had to build influence in order to understand how to have strategic allies and how to do the best that she could do in her current position in order for that to be a launch pad into her next area of impact. So these are the three things: clarity, confidence, and influence. I do not want to complicate matters any. Now, today, we're going to talk about impact. All three of these things really focus on impact, so you can have the biggest impact and really actualize what is in your heart and what's in your mind and really bring it to life. Okay, so keeping in mind, if you are not clear, high level aspirationally, or very granular, meaning if you're not clear about how you want a meeting to turn out, for example, then you really don't have a vision, either in the big picture or in the smaller picture. Okay, do you guys follow me? All right, now if you're not confident over here, then you don't have a voice. The reason being is that when people hear you, they hear your words carry 7% of the weight on people's perception, but your tone and gestures make up everything else. So if you're in a meeting and you're being talked over and it's kind of an old boys club, which just happened to another client of mine, two of the guys, the senior leader and one of her peers, were kind of best friends. It almost seemed like she was talking about high school or middle school, but she is an amazing leader and this was still going on. And he was talking over her and she knew in her heart what she needed to do, but she didn't, her perception was she did not want to be perceived as not being a team player. Okay, and she didn't, and she eventually spoke up, but she almost didn't. Okay, so, and in her mind, she was thinking, what if this, what if that? And she had some fear and doubt. And when you have that, it comes out your mouth. Or worst case scenario, you don't take action. So lacking confidence means you don't really have a voice. And then finally, if you're lacking influence or you're not influencing at a level that you need to influence, then you don't have significance. Because like I said, influence and success does not happen in solitude, right? We need others. And when we're talking about amazing people that are shifting industries, I happen to know that there's someone on this call that is just going to shift and make some really big changes in her entire industry. That's not going to happen. That's a lot to bear on her own shoulders. It's not going to happen by just her. So in other words, influence is all about having tactical empathy. And it's all about having strategic and science-based influence. Okay, you can tell I always say I have 3 kids. I do not have a favorite, just like I have 3 topics on my Venn diagram. I do not have a favorite, but if one were to edge out, it would be influence. If you know me, yes, I love talking about that. And more than I love talking about it, I love getting you guys there's nothing that lights me up more is that preparing people to go into meetings or presentations and just owning the room in a great way that actually impacts and benefits everyone in the room. Okay, fun. All right. Okay, so let's go. Today, because I know everyone's busy and actually in a few hours, I need to go speak at Women in Cloud. I am not going to keep you guys on here to talk about my entire framework. Okay, today we're going to talk about clarity and how do you get started. All right, and if anyone wants a discount to Women in Cloud, the conference that's going on currently, hit me up in the chat. We'll make sure you get that. All right, so cool. We're going to talk about clarity. All right, you guys ready? Clarity, we're going to start pretty high level aspirational. Excuse me. So with clarity, we want you to think about, in order to get grounded, it's important to take some time to think about your legacy. And I'll explain to you why that is. But for a moment, I just want you to take a breath. So if you're like me, you're standing up, that's fine. If you're sitting down, I just want you to put your hands by your sides and just take a pause for a second and take a deep breath in your nose and out your mouth. And you might be thinking, I did not come on this call to breathe, but I am telling you, if you want to feel in control, it's really important. And if you don't have 5 or 10 seconds to take a deep breath and get grounded, then you and I need to talk. Okay, so we're going to take one more breath. When you inhale in, it's a belly breath. And when you exhale, I want you to feel your feet sinking into the ground. Okay, one more. All right, because we're going to do some deep work right now. You ready? I'm going to look in the chat just to make sure. All right. Okay, cool. If you want the discount, yes, just put "that's me" and put your email in the chat, and I'll make sure my team gets that discount. I think it's, I'll just give it to you right now. I think it's 15 capital WIC for Women in Cloud. Okay. And if anyone gives you any grief, just tell them that you got it from me. All right. All right. So legacy. Now I'm going to give an example of someone that a story that will explain this better than me just kind of reviewing this with you. So I work with an amazing woman who has very big, audacious, crazy dreams, which is why I love working with her. But anyways, I asked her, so who's your who? And she's like, well, it's, my daughter, she has a teenage daughter, because just to change the industry. So the industry's different for her. And so if you were working every day, just like for my mom, to give my mom a voice, to give every woman a voice. So 2 years ago, speaking on a stage, the Women of Silicon Valley in front of 2,000 people, what brought me down to earth and on purpose and grounded was that I'm speaking for my mom. I'm speaking for the voice of every woman in the audience. So what I'm getting at is it's time to take a step outside of yourself and think about who's your who. Now, again, and I think this might be broken down so you can see it better. Oh yeah, there we go. I don't know if you're like, your eyesight's going, like mine a little bit. I thought I would blow this up a little bit. So think about who's your who. And again, you don't need to fill this out right now. Stick with me. I'm going to give you, I normally never do this. This is out of my course, but it was so important for me to give this for you today. So if you stick with me, I will give you the this worksheet at the end. But just start thinking about that a little bit. And if someone pops to your mind, if it's your daughter, if it's your mom, if it's, it could be someone that's not related to you. It could be, it could be anyone. So if someone comes to you, then go ahead and put it in the chat, because mine, I would be chatting like my mom, like definitely my mom, and really every female heart-centered leader and emerging leader like that. Those are my who's. Like, you guys are my who's, right? And so the reason why this is so important, and I don't want to know who your who is. If you're comfortable sharing it, go ahead and put it in the chat, because once we step outside of ourselves, then fear and doubt isn't really a thing anymore. It dissipates. So I want to see who your who's are. My partner. Yeah. So go ahead and put some in there, like who's your who. And then also I want you to think about when you are no longer in your career or no longer with us on the planet, how do you want to be remembered? Now, this question does not have to be this deep. In other words, you may have an upcoming interaction. So in other words, you may have a meeting coming up. I want you to think about when the meeting's over and you're no longer in the meeting, how do you want to be remembered? Or it could be higher level. It could be maybe when you're no longer in your position at your current organization. How do you want to be remembered? So when I was talking about Sue before, who has something bigger in her heart, that she has a next step. She's probably not going to be at her organization for the next 10 years or 5 years even, but how she wants to be remembered, she's felt like she still has work to do there. And she was thinking through, how does she want to be remembered there? And this is really the pre-work before we start talking about goals and mapping things out in blueprints. This is the pre-work to that. So if you want to go and put in the chat, who's your who, and start thinking through, what do you have coming up that's important, or what's most important on your mind right now? Is it your current position in your current organization? Do you want a promotion there? Do you want to think about, more globally? In other words, when you're no longer on the planet, how do you want to be remembered by your colleagues, by your family, by your friends? You get to choose how high level or how granular you want to go. But go ahead, keep putting in the chat who's your who. I'm just going to check those one more time. Oh, your quarantine. Mom, daughter, partner. Awesome. That's amazing. So keep thinking about that. And then also I want you to think through, and again, this worksheet, I'm going to give this worksheet to you at the end. This is something that I want you to take and grab a cup of coffee or tea and take it to yourself. Put a note on the door, do not bother me, unless your kids are really, really little. And think about too, why is this important to you? And keeping in mind that it's okay not to fully know. All right. So with Sue that I was talking about before, it's important to her. She said she can't put her finger on it, but she just knows in her heart and her gut that she has a heart of service. Okay. So think about, why is it important to you? And also too, you should share this with someone, because that's social learning and teaching. So, and also it's social learning, but also it can really help someone else. Okay. Now, I just want to recap kind of for a moment. Now, what we have talked about. Now, we talked about clarity, and I want to have a little bit more of a discussion about clarity. We've talked very specifically, stay on clarity, very specifically about legacy, very high level. Okay. But then, as the topic of this is called, it's called blueprint too. There's a lot more to clarity than just figuring out what your legacy is. So I want you to start thinking about what's next and how does that impact your legacy. Okay. And I'm going to walk you through an exercise in a second. Okay. We also talked about confidence, building the confidence, because I know a lot of you have achieved a lot of amazing things, but the reality is there's a next level for all of us, and we need to build new confidence when we're going next level or when we're going different. Okay. And then also we talked about influence, how to build strategic allies when we're going to the next level or when we're going different. So I want you to think about, if you're going different or next level, are there other people that you need to meet? Are there other people that you need to influence, connect with, learn from, what have you? Okay. And then, like I said, specifically, we talked about legacy. How do you want to be remembered? And then we're going to talk about blueprint or a plan. You might be thinking, okay, great. I kind of have an understanding of legacy, or I'll work through that sheet. But a lot of times people want to get down, roll their sleeves up, and they want the blueprint or the plan. So that's what we're really going to jump into today. And a lot of times people have set goals and created plans for themselves, but a lot of times it's, they need to understand that there's different goals for different periods of time. And we're going to talk about those for a moment, because a lot of times, I'll give you the example of Sue. Sue says, okay, I'm, President North America, sales for this tech company. I'm doing an amazing job. I got a great review. I have the respect of my peers. But they think, I have a heart of service. I want to translate this into something else, but that's really over there. It's unclear. It might be hard, something like that. But we think about it in a different way. World-class performers think about things in a little bit different way. And this is going to be the power of what I'm going to share right now because it's perspective. And so I want what we're going to start to do is learn how to think about the end in mind and create something for you backwards. So when I was talking to Sue, I'm like, so even though she doesn't know exactly what that is, so you might not know exactly in your organization what influence you want to have. You might not know what your next step is or which pivot you want to make, and that's okay. Start filling in the colors to this kind of painting is the best way that I can think of to explain it. So you want to think about what is the end game. In other words, for Sue, for example, she wanted to translate her last 20 years and especially her last 5 or 6 years as President North America in this tech company to a place of service. So I'm like, okay, you don't know exactly which organization or which sector, anything what you're going to do, but who do you want to impact? How does it feel? How long are you working? What kind of people are you working with? Who are your colleagues? Who does your work serve? Like, we just start creating that with the end in mind, okay? And then we start working backwards and creating a blueprint all the way down to granular. So what she figured out that she needs to do in the coming weeks, even though this is a couple years down the road, she needs to start meeting and networking with different kinds of people. So that's why, even as we were talking, I connected her with some people that I know that are running these huge, amazing, initiatives. So while she's not 100% clear, she's clear enough to start making progress. And she actually started taking control of the progress because she's connecting with, let's say, even one person a week and having a conversation. People that are running, she knew that she wanted in this big high level. I'm not talking about, volunteering for the food bank. I'm talking about, global initiatives. Like there's a global dignity initiative that Giovanna Mingarelli is running right now. Huge. And so she's starting to understand that and doing the work now in the background. And if you do that with the end in mind and you work through all of this, then the forest starts to become clear through the trees and you continue to make progress, even though you're not really sure how long or how hard it's going to be. You know that it's already happened in the next 3 to 5 years, and you're committed to taking action now, even if they're tiny, small steps. Okay, so is everyone following me a little bit? Is anyone ready for a shift or a pivot, or they feel kind of like you're ready for like the next level? Maybe it's within their role, maybe it's a next role, maybe it's in or out of their org or what have you. Yeah. All right. So I want you to do something a little crazy. I'm going to have you close your eyes and no one can see you. So unless there's someone in your house. And so if you look a little strange, then they'll love you anyway. That's okay. And so where we're going to start right now is from a place of compassion. And I want to take you through an exercise that will help you through this. It will help you create your blueprint. Okay. So before we get started, I want you to really have some gratitude and compassion for where you're at in the mountains that you've climbed. I want you to think about for a moment how far you've traveled to get to this point and really honor yourself for a moment before we get started and launched off into the future. Okay. And now I want you to think about in the next 12 months to couple years, what is the end game for you? In other words, you don't have to have total clarity. We're just getting started here today. But in an effort to start creating your blueprint, what's next for you? Who would you be working with? How long would you be working? What would those people look like? Would they look like you? Would they be very diverse? what is your big dream that you have? And how can you really start to paint and fill in the gaps, even though you might not know exactly where and what position, what organization, or maybe it's within your company. You want to see not just a diverse workplace and an equitable workplace, but you start to imagine an inclusive workplace where there's not just other people having seats at the table and maybe people who are marginalized even within our gender, but they're inclusive and that you're growing new leaders or you're having this type of impact. So I want you to think for you in the next 12 months to couple years, start to think about who are you working with, how does it feel, what is the impact. It might even be in the meetings that you're having. What are those meetings like? How much impact are you having in those meetings? Are you owning your voice in those meetings, and how does it impact you and the other people in the meetings and your entire organization? Okay, I also want you to think too, now open your eyes and think about one word that you can commit to. So now that we've walked you through a little bit, and please feel free, not just feel free, I'd like to invite you to put these words into the chat. One word that now that you've had some gratitude and compassion for all the amazing things that you've done, but now you're looking into the future for what's next within your position, within your organization, or maybe outside. What is one word that defines the best version of you? So in other words, if your colleagues, friends, and family were talking about you and they didn't know that you were there, they said, oh my gosh, Sue is just so amazing. You know, Sue is this. What would be the one word? And so it might be caring, present. You know, what is it? So go ahead. I want to see what some of these words are. I'm going to shout them out to you. Intrepid, boldness, strength, focus, inspiring. Awesome. Yeah, thanks for putting those in there. All right, so what I want you to do before we wrap it up and take some Q&A, and also sit tight because I am going to give you this, give you some tools as well. But I want you to put that word, not right now, but when we're done, I'd like you to put that word in your phone, just that one word in your phone, and set it as a alarm. So at 10 in the morning and maybe at 6 o'clock at night, because while you may already be an amazing leader, if you're thinking that there's a next level for you, or you're thinking that maybe there's more and you want to feel more grounded, you want to feel more on purpose, then it's very important to be reminded of this word. So if you can imagine before going into a meeting, you see bold pop up. If before a meeting, you know, you see caring pop up, and then that'll pop up. So it's so important to remind yourself, because a lot of times we're really good in certain situations and then maybe not so good in others. A lot of senior leaders that I talk with, they're amazing with their colleagues and at work, but sometimes their family kind of wears on them. So put in this word in your phone, okay? All right, so what is this ignition call? You know, I want to make this content real, and this isn't selling anything. I'm not selling anything on this call. I want to make this real, and I'll tell you how and why. To have a 30-minute private Zoom call, because I've thrown a lot of information at you, and I want to make sure you understand how to be on purpose. So it's all about you, not general, customized, right? I want to really talk about your goals, your mission. That's what we're going to cover on this, because I think the world really needs to see the best of you right now. And if you're feeling in your heart that it's time for a shift or change within your organization, or on the outside of your organization, we need your impact now more than ever. And so it's be your goals. Get clear, get crystal clear. I can't talk about how important this is. That's why we started here. Get clear, high level, aspirational, all down to granular. We work on whatever is important to you. And then also you understand, what is this system that I ran through? really understand it and have it customized for you. And then also for you in your personal custom situation, what transformation can you expect? From feeling like you are maybe spinning, working too hard, overly busy, and the days are just coming and going and coming and going, and you just need to put the brakes on. How do you go from that to really feel calm and control and on purpose? Okay, we're going to talk about how to create that. And also, what is the next step? The next step, well, normally I charge for this. I am not charging for this because you have given me 30 minutes, an hour of your time. But this 30-minute Zoom call, I'm opening up my calendar for the next, I would say, week or so. And then I'm going to close it down because I charge for these normally. I'm not going to charge for this call. If we have a discussion and we decide that it makes sense to work together, we'll move on to a full coaching call, which is an hour after that. I don't charge for either one of these calls. So it's literally no risk to you. I'm not selling. The only thing that I am trying to sell you on is let me help you get some clarity. And if we make a mutual decision that I am a good person and my system is a good fit and you're a good fit for me, after this 30-minute session, you graduate on to the hour. After both of those, which there's no cost to you, then we'll have the discussion about coaching, or if I can help you and or your team. So hopefully I've made myself clear. Thank you so much for spending this time with me. I left a little time for Q&A. I am here. I'm going to hang out with you. I'm going to look at your comments now. But right now, I'm going to take some questions. And please do grab one of these spots, because by the end of, not this week, but by the end of next week, we're going to close down the calendar and we're just going to start charging for them. And I want to make sure, out of respect for you and spending time with me, I want to make sure that I have the time, excuse me, to get on there. So let me go ahead and see. Okay, I have some questions coming in, so stick with me, because these, I have a lot of similar, like-minded folks on this call, so these might really apply to you. How do I overcome my hesitation to speak up in groups? I want to share my thoughts and experiences and opinions more openly, but often I'm talked over, interrupted, and it's so frustrating. What do you suggest? They're also a little, has anyone ever been worried about other people's perception too? I mean, sometimes that happens as well. I'm glad that question came in. There's definitely ways to structure your conversations, which I get into in influence, which I didn't touch on today. But what I will tell you is, since we talked about clarity, the first step is getting crystal clear prior to going into any meeting, interaction, presentation, anything, is that how do you want it to go, and have a plan in place. So usually when something like that happens, it's happened before. Okay, so you want to plan and prepare for it. And then you want to really hold your ground. And there's a way to do that in a calm and authentic way. And I'm glad to have a conversation with you offline, but it's beyond the scope of what we talked about today. Okay, but great question. Thank you. All right, any more questions? There's one more. Okay, coming in. All right, so January has been an insane month for myself and my team. What's the best way to help everyone get focused, productive, and grounded? That is a great question. First, just like we started high level aspirational, I'm not really sure how big your team is, if it's a half dozen people or if you're talking about it's a huge global team or what have you. But I assume with your direct reports, if that's who you're talking about, it's not that big of a team. It's very important to get them back reconnected, high level aspirational. So in other words, for them to take a pause and to really understand and lock into their highest sense of integrity, you know, their legacy, and also to the company mission and why they're doing what they're doing. This high level work, and the reason why I chose to teach this little sliver of my system today, is because the times that we're in with the pandemic and election and everything going on, and still in the pandemic, is that it's our intrinsic motivators that we need to tap into right now. Intrinsic motivators. When people are tired, overstressed, overworked, and things are overly busy, extrinsic rewards such as recognition, money, all of those things, they're very important, but these are more important now. And so if you can get yourself and your team, you can even share with them this exercise that you went through, or I'm glad to run them through it for you, but to get them very connected into their legacy, their mission, why they're doing, get inside to them, and that will in turn help their motivation. And be sure to focus on that before you start going into their extrinsic motivation. So are there any other questions? Any other questions? All right, so it looks like the link is in the chat if anyone wants it. So last question that I see, it looks like, you know, I mentioned about perception. I've had a couple questions on that, and people are worried about when they are in a meeting and they want to speak up, either they're getting spoken over, or they want to stick up for a colleague, but because of the dynamics, they're a little worried about perception. And so since I know this session is not about influence, but this is so important that I just want to go there and be sure to answer this question. Oh, looks like someone raised their hand. So before, okay, so, oh yeah, okay, awesome. Okay, so I totally want to go through that. I'll give an example of something that happened just recently. So a very senior leader in a bank, her boss actually was speaking over her, and he sounded pretty, a little bit aggressive, kind of out of character. He's a nice guy, typically they have a good relationship, but she kept trying to voice an idea, she kept getting shut down. And she did not want to appear disrespectful. It also happened by a peer, kept interrupting her. And her perception was that she wasn't going to be a team player because there was a dynamic going on between the senior leader and also the peer. They kind of had like a bromance going on. I don't want to be funny, but I don't know. There was something weird going on there. And not weird, but they were kind of favorites. Like they were really good buddies. And so she didn't want to cut them off. She didn't want to disrespect the boss. There were just a lot of things going on. So what's most important is to come from a place of empathy and compassion. Think that in your mind, not necessarily for the other person, you know, but you have to be empathetic and compassionate and curious, because if you're thinking, well, that's rude, and if you're thinking that that's very annoying and you're very frustrated, it's 100% valid. But the problem is we don't have influence when we sound angry, annoyed, or frustrated. I'm not saying it's not valid. What I'm saying is you're not going to get the desired result you want if you're thinking that way. Because if you're thinking that way, it's going to come out your mouth and your tone. Okay, what you think. Has anyone ever experienced that? Like you say something, you think something and you say something and gets perceived like a little wonky. Yeah. Okay, so what you want to do is take a breath, you know, and again, you have to get clear in your mind what you want to say. If you have a gut feeling that you need to speak up for yourself or someone else, then you definitely should. Okay, and so you want to take a breath, and what you want to do is you can pause a conversation. And I think I posted my last blog Kamala Harris did this in an amazing way when she was in her debate with Mike Pence. This is not a political comment. I'm just commenting on her style. But what you do is you just go, well, hang on a moment. Hang on a moment. I want to be clear that I was speaking. And I'm sure what you have to say is important. And I understand that there's a lot going on. We have a limited amount of time. But it's important that I have this moment to put this out there. And so influence is really about three things. And I'm going to take, since we have a few minutes, I'm going to take a little bit of a right-hand turn and share with you the three major components of influence in hopes that it'll help you navigate through this situation or if something similar comes up. It's a human drive that we feel acknowledged and validated. Again, if you want to go deeper with this in your specific situation, schedule a call with me. I think it's in the chat there, the link. You want to acknowledge, excuse me, acknowledge and validate others. So it seems like you have something important to say. I get it 100%. I want to hear it too. So even though someone's interrupting you, you're acknowledging and validating them. Okay, even though you might not want to, but it seems counterintuitive. Okay, so you're basically doing that, and then you can role model the way and express what you have to say. And then if they cut you off again, or if it happens again, you have to kind of come back and say, hang on, I understand that you have something extremely important to say, and I understand. This is the point that I'm trying to make. So now you can share your perspective. And do you think that it's important, since we have a common goal of doing XYZ, you need to think of a common goal that you have in common as a group. Okay. So then you're going to ask them a question at the end. So let me come back and just kind of review these three steps, because I'm throwing something totally new at you, but I want to make sure you know how to maneuver this. Acknowledge and validate. Even if you're in disagreement with someone, or even if someone's totally out of line. So they interrupt you, you're like, hang on a second. It seems like you have something extremely important to say, and I understand, I want to hear it. Or I understand that it's important. But here's the thing, what I was saying was, and you can go back to what you were saying. And then you want to end with asking a question. If they jump in and interrupt you again, and you just say, hang on, I know it seems like what you have to say is important, but based on our joint goal of everyone going through their their earnings, their reports, their data, collaborating, whatever your common goal is, don't you think it's important that each of us at least have one moment to share? Okay, so what that does is, what influence is all about is helping other people come up to your point of view. Okay, acknowledge and validate, share your point of view, and then ask a question and just stand firm. Now, that being said, it's important, if you are going into a meeting that can be highly contentious, or it's happened before, you need to do the pre-work. Okay, we didn't talk about the pre-work, but getting your mind straight. And there is a worksheet for this as well. It's part of the curriculum in influence, but if I'll throw it out there, so develop an eco mindset. Empathy, compassion, empathy, curiosity, optimism. Make sure you go into all interactions with true empathy, and thinking through not what must it be like for the person, but I am that person. Because if you can develop what's called tactical empathy and strategic influence, you can shift one-on-one interactions and shift interactions in a group in a calm and compassionate way. So that's a conversation for another day. I hope that I have given you the tip of the iceberg, and I'm going to stick around for any further questions. I'm going to look in the chat, and yes, Yeah, people are commenting on the Kamala Harris. Yeah, that was amazing. So in recap, thanks so much. Oh, it looks like some of you are grabbing up those spots. I'm not sure how many more there are. Be sure to grab an ignition call if you haven't. I want to make this content real for you. I want to take you from feeling like you're a little bit overwhelmed, maybe not so clear, and also maybe not as on purpose as you could be, to help you feeling really more grounded, clear, and on purpose. So I look forward to having that conversation with you. And I look forward to continuing that conversation. Also, if you are not part of the community, go ahead and join that as well. And I'm here to make this content real. So here's to you being amazing. Keep up all of your incredible work out there. Excuse me, I am cheering you on from San Francisco, and I look forward to hearing from you soon.